Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto lost his sight? Hinata became the one he could always trust. Part 1. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. During a Class C mission, Team 7 were assigned to locate and rescue a villager who had been captured by a band of criminals. Because of Team 7's growth in the past few months, their Junin-sensei, Kakashi, decided to let Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura handle it on their own. Naruto suspected that he did this just to get some alone time with his precious books. After about a week, Sakura managed to piece together where the villager was being held, and with a rather simple, grab and run, strategy they rescued the villager and headed back to Konoha. On the way back they bumped into the criminals they originally beat. But this time, however, the group had hired a couple of ninja-class mercenaries. Like the ones Gato had. "Dobi, you better try to do everything yourself again," Sasuke growled to Naruto. "Shut up, Sasuke, I could take that dimwit duo by myself," Naruto responded in his, "don't underestimate me" voice. Meanwhile Sakura just sighs, while inner Sakura is screaming, "Can't you two get along for just 1 minute? All of a sudden the dimwit duo burst out laughing at Naruto. "You got beaten by these punks, man, you guys are weak," the first mercenary says back to the group that hired them. "What the hell did you just say?" screamed Naruto. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the one who will become the greatest homage ever." In a blind rage Naruto drew his kunai and charged at the two ninjas, but one of the ninjas merely raised his fist so it was horizontal and Naruto ran face first into it, completely leveling him. While the two ninjas were questioning the standards of ninjas Konoha were training, Sasuke used the time to throw a barrage of shuriken as well as charging at the ninjas with his own kunai, but a little less blindedly than Naruto. Unfortunately these ninjas were better than Sasuke first thought. He assumed that since they didn't have forehead protectors, they weren't trained as real ninjas, but faster than Sasuke could blink they both turned around and drew katanas sheathed to their backs. And deflected every last one of the shuriken, forcing Sasuke to jump back and re-evaluate his opponents. In that short time Naruto regained his breath and slapped an exploding tag to one of them. He deliberately placed it on an armor plate he had on his back so he would just injure him but not kill him. The tag exploded, causing him to fly into a tree while the other jumped out the way at the last second. With one ninja down and the other a bit surprised at the explosion, Sasuke realized that it would take more than hand-to-hand combat skills to take down the last ninja, so Sasuke ran through the required hand seals. "Kaiten, Ryuka no Jutsu," said Sasuke while maintaining his unique level of calm. As Sasuke's fiery dragon burst forth, the second ninja knew that it was over. The flames just glanced his side, knocking him unconscious. While Naruto turned to look at what just happened, the flames were in harm's distance of Naruto's face. Outwardly Naruto screamed and inwardly he cursed Sasuke for both hurting him and beating the second ninja. Naruto fell backwards and fainted. The original group of criminals picked their moment and ran like the wind, while Sasuke and Sakura tended to Naruto. Sakura cleaned up the burn and put a field dressing on it, while Sasuke put together a stretcher to carry Naruto back to Konoha. Sakura knew she should scold Sasuke for being so careless, but she couldn't bring herself to raise her voice to her love, so she just kept her eye on Naruto's injury, while the rescued villager helped Sasuke carry Naruto's stretcher. Although Sasuke looked calm on the outside, he was feeling a slight bit remorseful for hitting Naruto with such a high-class fire technique, especially on his face. He knew what kind of damage he may have caused to his teammate. He only hoped that Tsunade could heal him. Sakura and Sasuke and their rescuers had been traveling for almost 6 hours straight, only stopping for 5 or 10 minutes at a time to check on Naruto, who apparently still hadn't woken up, although he did seem to twitch on the makeshift stretcher every so often. Soon enough their village gates came into view. Since the aftermath of the Chunin exam, the gates had remained shut, whereas before the gates would remain open, only opening to let teams in and out. At a simple hand signal from Sasuke to the sentries on duty, the gates swung open. As they walked into the Konoha they only saw a few people doing their daily errands. A part of Sasuke expected a swarm of demented, screaming girls to materialize in front of him to greet him, but the other part of him reminded him that almost no one chased after him since his betrayal to the Leaf. In fact, they treated him similarly to how they treated Naruto, although some still looked at him as a heroic survivor of the Uchiha clan, but he still felt the pain from those who didn't. Now the only girl who chased him now was his teammate, Haruno Sakura. Not even her eternal rival Ino chased after him anymore. Sasuke knew that this pain wasn't as bad as Naruto's, but ever since he felt this pain, he formed a new respect for Naruto, for he lived his entire life with an even greater pain and he still managed to keep a positive attitude. After Sasuke and Sakura had dropped Naruto off in the hospital, Sasuke and the rescued villager left for the Hokage office to deliver the mission report. While Sakura stayed in the hospital waiting room awaiting news on Naruto, she waited for 2 hours before she decided to go look for Naruto. She walked around for a bit before she saw a flash of blonde hair through an open door. It looked like Naruto was lying motionless on a hospital bed. He was probably still asleep since he never stopped moving when he was awake. On his face there was now a proper bandage which stopped just above his mouth and covered both his cheeks, leaving only his mouth and chin exposed. As Sakura sat down, she let out a huge sigh because it was the first time she sat down all day. Sakura-chan. At the mention of her own name, Sakura screamed. When she realized that it had been Naruto who said her name, she was tempted to hit him for scaring her like that. "How did you know it was me?" questioned Sakura. "Well, you're the only girl who would come to visit me. Besides, you're the only one I know that sighs like an old door swinging closed." Sakura's left eyebrow twitched quite violently at this. Old. Tsunade, Konoha's current Hokage, was rushing down the corridor of the hospital in search of Naruto. Once Sasuke had told her what had happened, she was fully awake and out the door to the hospital. As she was checking each room for her favorite loudmouth, she walked into one room to be greeted by quite a sight. Sakura was pounding Naruto in the stomach. Tsunade forced a cough to signify her presence. At this, Sakura turned around. "Hello, Hokage-sama," greeted Sakura, her anger forgotten. Obaa-chan. As Naruto realized that Tsunade was there. Fortunately for Naruto, Tsunade decided that he had been beaten enough, so let it go. "Naruto, I'm here to take a look at your injury. Fire techniques can be very damaging, especially to the face. Sakura, I would like you to leave us. This could take a while. Maybe you should go home." "You're right, Hokage-sama, please do your best with Naruto." Sakura left the hospital room and Tsunade proceeded to remove the bandages that were covering Naruto's face. She activated an analyzing jutsu and proceeded to examine Naruto's face. A worried look came across her face as she noticed something. "Naruto, please open your eyes." With a gasp of pain, he forced his eyes open, then he blinked over and over. Tsunade knew exactly what was wrong. "Obaa-chan, I can't see." As she was making her way through the village to get home, Sakura saw Hyuga Hinata, another kunoichi who she had become close friends with. Hinata looked a bit upset. To a passerby, Hinata always looked upset by the way she kept her head down, but to a close friend like Sakura it was clear that something was troubling Hinata. Sakura walked over to Hinata. "Hello, Hinata-chan," greeted Sakura, suppressing her concerns for Naruto. "Oh, hello Sakura-chan," responded Hinata. "Did your mission go well?" Clearly she was trying to forget about whatever problem she had. Well, Sakura knew that she should tread lightly here. She knew all too well for her fondness for Naruto. Looking back on it, she must have been a fool not to realize it. It wasn't until Hinata admitted it to Ino and herself while they were having lunch together. Well, Hinata echoed, and Sakura cursed herself for letting her mind wander away like that. "Well, we rescued the villager, but there was an accident involving Naruto." At the mention of his name, Hinata looked right into Sakura's eyes with a very worried expression. "A accident," Hinata repeated. She had obviously forgotten her previous worries and was deeply concerned about Naruto. "Yes, an accident. You see, Sasuke and Naruto were fighting a pair of ninjas. As the fight ended, Sasuke-kun used one of his fire attacks and Naruto caught the edge of the attack on his face. As Sakura finished talking, Hinata instantly turned around and started toward the hospital. Don't worry, Hinata-chan, Tsunade-sama is with Naruto, she'll help him, Sakura called after her, knowing that it would be foolish to try and stop her. Sakura then descended back into her own thoughts about Sasuke, their next mission, whatever it could be, Naruto's condition and Hinata's infatuation with Naruto. I wonder if they'll ever get together? Questioned inner Sakura. Oh well, whatever happens, happens. As Hinata thought about what happened to Naruto, she broke into a run. She started feeling very nervous about how much damage had been done. She avoided all negative thoughts and continued to run. It wasn't long before she reached the hospital. Hinata burst through the doors of the hospital and ran straight to the front desk. Which room is Uzumaki Naruto in? Asked Hinata, completely ignoring the queue of people behind her. The receptionist could see the look of deep concern in Hinata's eyes and started looking through a large ring binder folder. He is in room 27, go down that corridor and turn left before the stairs, the receptionist pointed to the corridor behind her. Thank you, Hinata called to her as she ran down the corridor. Tsunade cancelled the healing technique she was using on Naruto, but she still wore the same expression of worry and concern. Naruto, I've cleared up the burns, but there is some damage to the optic nerves. The nerves are just too small to heal with a jutsu, I've treated it, but that's all I can do. There's a chance that your eyes will heal themselves given time, but I'm afraid that you will be without your sight for a while. We'll leave your eyes for a week. By that time we will be able to determine how extensive the damage is. But if you're unable to see even blurred images by then, you will probably never have your sight back. How big a chance is there that my eyes will heal? Asked Naruto, his voice lost the energy it once held. Tsunade was hoping he wouldn't ask this. I won't lie to you, Naruto, it's small, but you have to understand, you are very lucky. If this had happened to someone else, someone who didn't have Kyuubi's healing powers, then there would be no doubt that they would never see again. Tsunade was desperate to raise Naruto's spirits, but she feared that she may have made him feel even worse. I understand, but do I have to stay here for the whole week? Asked Naruto. It was hard to tell if he was more upset about his sight or the prospect of staying in these uncomfortable hospital beds all week. Oh no, not all week, you will have to spend the night here, but you will be allowed to leave in the morning as long as you have someone to accompany you. Thank God for that. I'd die of boredom if I stayed for a week. Naruto almost sounded happy, but it was hard to forget that he couldn't see. The door to Naruto's room opened and in came Hinata. She was red in the face. Tsunade wondered if it was because she had been running or because of the presence of Naruto. Hello Hinata, what brings you here? Tsunade asked. Inwardly she was grinning from ear to ear because she knew precisely why she was here. Naruto's head rose up. Hinata. Naruto was shocked that anyone would come to see him. Even Sasuke hadn't dropped in on him, even though he was the reason he was in hospital. This thought struck him very hard. Because of Sasuke he may never see again. He put that thought at the back of his mind for now and turned his attention to the new arrival. Why yes, Naruto-kun. In Hinata's haste to reach the hospital she never thought about what to say to Naruto when she got there. How are you feeling about Naruto-kun? Hinata figured that is a good start. I feel fine, but I'm going to have to give my eyes a rest for a while. Naruto tried to sound like his normal self but didn't do too well. Oh, is it serious? Hinata was starting to worry from the tone in his voice. Hinata could tell that something was wrong. It could be, but only time will tell. Tsunade interrupted. Hinata jumped at the sound of her voice. Naruto, I need to put a bandage over your eyes to ensure no light can reach the nerves. Please sit up and keep your eyes comfortably closed, they won't be open for a week, said Tsunade as she reached into a medical bag for the bandages. Naruto did as he was told. He sat up on the bed and kept his eyes closed. This shouldn't take too long. Hinata, why don't you take a seat? You look very nervous, said Tsunade while she was sorting out the bandages. Yes, Hokage-sama. Hinata sat in one of the chairs that were lined along the wall and set it beside Naruto's bed. She sat down and watched as Tsunade placed the bandages on Naruto. Tsunade cut out 2 individual patches of the cotton bandage and placed them over his eyes, securing them in place with some medical tape. Then she proceeded to wrap a long bandage around his head covering his eyes. "Okay, I'm done, Naruto, is that too tight for you?" Tsunade said as she was adjusting the bandage. "It's fine thanks Obachan." As Tsunade struggled to contain herself, Naruto lay back down on the bed. "All right, I've spent enough time here, Hinata. Could you be here tomorrow morning? Naruto is going to be out of the hospital and he needs someone to help him around the village," Tsunade asked. She silently applauded herself for asking her to. She killed 2 birds with 1 stone. 1. She gave Hinata a chance to be close to Naruto. With any luck, spending time with Hinata may balance Naruto out. Who knows, they may even become Konoha's newest couple. And 2. She won't have to look all over Konoha to find Sakura or someone else to do it. She needs to get back to her office for some sleep. "Naruto, I'll be here in the morning before you 2 leave for the day. The nurse will be in soon with something to eat," Tsunade told him as she was leaving. "Ramen?" Naruto asked excitedly. "Naruto, this is a hospital not Ichiraku," Tsunade said. Tsunade walked out the room so it was just Naruto and Hinata left. "Hinata," Naruto said, turning his head to Hinata's general direction. "Yes Naruto-kun." Hinata was starting to lose her shyness around Naruto, she didn't know why. Before, the very mention of his name would send her heart racing, but now she felt at peace. "Thank you for coming to see me. Not even Sasuke has come to say hello. You're a good person Hinata." Naruto was feeling extremely thankful for someone coming to see him. Inside he was feeling scared and alone, but he did his best to hide it. "You're welcome, Naruto-kun. Sakura-chan told me what had happened so I came to see if you were alright." Hinata smiled to herself for not stuttering. "You're sounding a lot more confident than you used to. My blindfold must be having a positive effect already." Hinata even let a small giggle escape at that. This made Naruto especially happy. He loved making people laugh, he always has, even when those same people made him feel like dying. The nurse came in carrying a tray. It had some food on it but nothing more than a snack. The nurse placed it over Naruto's lap. "Here is your food, Naruto-san," said the nurse. Naruto jumped slightly from the unexpected contact. "Thank you," said Naruto, but the nurse said nothing. But Naruto was used to this. Hinata however wasn't. "She was very rude to you, Naruto-kun." Hinata was shocked that a nurse of all people would be so cold toward a blind patient. "Yeah well, I'm kinda used to it by now." Naruto was feeling around the tray on his lap trying to find the food. "I can't tell where the tray ends and the food begins, they both have the same rough texture." Hinata noticed what was on the plate. It looked like a brick of some kind of meat. It was bad even by hospital standards. "Hinata, could you please help me? I'm not sure what I'm meant to eat." Naruto realized that this was just the beginning. This won't be the only time he will need help. Usually he wouldn't trust someone to help him, but Hinata was someone he trusted, even if he rarely talked to her. Hinata turned red in the face when he asked for her help, but she did as she was asked. She reached out her hand and put it on Naruto's wrist. Both he and Hinata jumped at the contact. Naruto wasn't expecting it, but he realized that he would have to get used to it, and Hinata, because she came into physical contact with Naruto. She guided his hand on the tray and placed it on the meat. She then let go. "Thanks Hinata. I'd probably take a bite out of the tray if I didn't have any help," Naruto said before he took a bite out of the brick. He chewed once before he realized the foul taste and dropped the brick. Naruto realized that it would be rude to spit out the food in front of Hinata, so he did his best to ask for a napkin. Somehow she understood, but there wasn't a napkin on the tray, so she brought one out of her pocket and put it into Naruto's hands. He put over his mouth and pushed out the food into it, trying to sound as least disgusting as possible. The napkin smelled very girly. He realized that Hinata must have given him one of her own. "Thanks again, Hinata." Naruto now thought that having someone to help him wasn't too bad. Hinata smiled silently to herself. "I don't suppose that there was a glass of water on the tray. I can't stand the taste of whatever that stuff was meant to be," Naruto said as he crushed the napkin into a ball and dropped it on the tray. "Sorry, Naruto-kun, there is none. They probably did this on purpose. Naruto said. Never mind, I probably still have some in my jacket. Hinata, could you maybe find my jacket and search the pockets for a bottle, please? Of course, Naruto-kun. She was feeling glad to help. Hinata got up and walked over to the wardrobe. She saw Naruto's trademark orange clothing. Hinata often questioned herself why anyone would wear so much orange. As she searched through the pockets, she could tell the clothes smelled like Naruto. She found the small bottle of water in an inside pocket of his jacket. I've found it, Naruto-kun, she said as she took away the tray and placed the bottle in Naruto's hand. She put the tray down on a desk next to the bed. Thanks, Naruto chuckled out. He was saying thanks a lot. He unscrewed the cap and downed the whole lot. That was good. Naruto felt better after drinking the water. He then let out a powerful yawn and realized that he was tired. He had been awake since they had arrived back at Konoha. He just decided to let himself be carried instead of being made to walk by Sasuke and Sakura if they found out that he was awake. I see that you're tired, Naruto-kun. I'll go home and let you sleep. Okay then, good night, Hinata. See you tomorrow. Sweet dreams, Naruto-kun, said Hinata as she walked out the door. When the door shut behind her, she realized something. She turned around and walked back into Naruto's room. Welcome home, Naruto-kun. After hearing this, a huge smile came across Naruto's face. Thank you, Hinata. Hinata turned around and walked out the room and proceeded up the corridor with a noticeable spring in her step. Naruto awoke from a strange dream drenched in a cold sweat. He dreamt of walking sightless around a room filled with people who were knocking into him and talking loudly. They were scarring him because he was unsure of where he was and he was unprepared for all the contact he felt. It ended when he was pushed away and he started to fall down a hole. When Naruto woke up, he sat straight up in the bed and was reminded that he couldn't see. Hello. Naruto wasn't sure if there was anyone around. He didn't even know what time it was, but from the singing of birds and sounds of movement outside his room he figured that it must be morning. Suddenly he heard a dull thud. He sensed someone had entered the room. The sound must have been the door being pushed open. Naruto-san, Tsunade-sama will be in a few minutes. Hyuga Hinata said that she will be here at about 10 o'clock. That's in half an hour. The nurse sounded like everyone else. She had the same cold tone in her voice. Thank you. Could you please open a window? I'm feeling a bit overheated, Naruto said as he wiped the sweat from his forehead. The nurse gave no reply. Excuse me. Still no reply. Excuse me. Naruto was feeling very scared now. Naruto, for once in your life please try not to shout. Tsunade's voice broke the silence. Naruto was very relieved that he wasn't alone. These nurses are really mean. You would think that they would pay me some sympathy, Naruto said. Just ignore them, Naruto. Hatred is a hard thing to get over. Tsunade tried to give Naruto a reason as to why they treated him so badly. Reet, now I feel better, Naruto was said sarcastically. Anyway, Naruto, there are a few rules you must follow when you're out of here. You mustn't remove the bandages no matter what. You will be allowed to sleep in your own home for the week, but if something feels wrong then you have to come back to the hospital, and you'll have to come to my office later tonight for me to check your bandages, but after that, the week is yours. And remember, Hinata is there to help you. Don't try anything complex on your own. Ask Hinata for help, and remember, she is in charge. She is to help you, but if she thinks that something is wrong she will bring you here. Do not argue with her, Tsunade warned him. I'm sure she'll be only too happy to help, she said inside her head. Do I have to get her help for everything? Naruto said, mentally raising an eyebrow. What do you mean? No, not everything. I expect you to handle your own private matters, Naruto. Tsunade was shaking her head. And stay out of trouble, Tsunade warned him. Hinata woke up feeling very refreshed. She was going to spend the whole day with Naruto and she could speak normally with him, but then another realization hit her. Other people are bound to see them together. What if they get the wrong idea? It would be so embarrassing if Sakura-chan or Ino-chan see us. What if they say something? Hinata said to herself. She let out a small yawn and rubbed her eyes. She looked over at the clock on her bedside table and gasped. 20 to 10. I overslept. I was meant to get up early to explain to Kurenai-sensei about Naruto-kun. I'll have to do that later, I need to get to the hospital. Hinata said as she rushed to get dressed. In a blurred haste, Hinata got changed. She was out of her room in a few minutes. She was out of the Hyuga estate a couple of minutes later, but not before almost knocking her cousin Neji off his feet. Foolish girl, muttered Neji. He had actually warmed up to Hinata since the Chunin exams, ever since he found out the truth of his father. Since then Neji had apologized to Hinata for hurting her so badly during their fight in the prelims. Neji watched her run out of the gates. She must be in a hurry. Hinata-sama didn't even stop to apologize to me, said Neji to no one in particular. Hinata was starting to wonder if she will always be running to the hospital at some point during the week. Soon enough she was at the hospital again. She went straight to the front desk again. The same receptionist was sitting at the desk. This time there was no queue of people. I'm here to see Uzumaki Naruto again, Hinata told the receptionist. She was feeling a lot less worried than before. He's right where you left him, you just need to sign in this time, she said as she handed a pen to Hinata and pointed to a clipboard on the desk. Hinata signed her name and left down the corridor without another word. She followed the same path she took the night before and found Naruto's room, number 27. She knocked on the door this time instead of bursting in like last night. Come in, she heard Naruto's voice say. This brought a slight blush to Hinata's cheeks as she pushed open the door, and just like last night Tsunade was sitting down on the opposite side of Naruto and Naruto was lying back in bed, only this time he wore a smile. Good morning Naruto-kun, how are you feeling? Hinata asked. Although she was blushing, she didn't feel very nervous around Naruto. I'm feeling okay now, but waking up without being able to see can be scary, Naruto said while maintaining his smile. Tsunade looked at Naruto slightly surprised. It looks like Naruto is starting to open up around Hinata. Before, he would never admit to being scared, Tsunade thought to herself, then she remembered something. Naruto, do you feel any pain in your eyes? Tsunade asked. Pain? No, I feel fine, Naruto said still smiling. No Naruto, pain is a good sign, it means that the nerves are healing, and if you don't feel any pain well. Tsunade trailed off. Naruto's smile slowly disappeared as he realized what she was saying. If you do feel pain, nothing is wrong with you, so don't worry about it, but try to see me when you do feel something, Tsunade told him. And I'm afraid that even if you do feel pain, it isn't a sure sign that you will see again. I'm sorry. Naruto, Hinata and I will be outside while you get dressed. You'll find your clothes in that wardrobe. Tsunade pointed to a wardrobe next to the bed, still feeling bad about Naruto. You're funny, Naruto shouted. Tsunade realized what she had done and smacked her forehead. How stupid could she be for pointing out something to a blind person? Naruto, I'm sorry, I forgot. Tsunade felt like an idiot. It's okay, as long as you aren't making fun of me, Naruto said, his smile beginning to return. Hinata, could you please get Naruto's clothes? Tsunade asked Hinata, which intensified Hinata's blush. She opened the wardrobe and took Naruto's black t-shirt, orange jacket and pants off the hangers and put them on Naruto's bed. Just call when you're done, Naruto, Tsunade said as she and Hinata walked out the door. Tsunade took the time to explain to Hinata about what she had to do to help Naruto. Hinata, you will have to help Naruto with a lot of things, so you'll have to be with him most of the time. I've already informed Kurenai about this, so she has given you time off. During that time you are to help Naruto get around the village, and just help him with anything he may have trouble with. I've explained this to him and told him that you will be in charge. He will listen to you, so if something seems wrong you will have to bring him back here or to my office. You and Naruto should decide a time in the morning when you'll come to meet him. It would be best if you get a key to Naruto's apartment as well, and at night don't leave his house until he is in bed. Do you understand? Tsunade asked. Hinata nodded. Almost. Do I have to help him with everything? Asked Hinata, her face looking like a ripe tomato. Tsunade almost laughed at this. These two were more alike than she thought. No, not everything. Naruto will need some private time, but apart from that he will probably need your help with most things, Tsunade told her. A large crash was heard coming from inside Naruto's room. Taking a quick look inside the room, Tsunade shook her head muttering to herself, then she opened the door very slightly again. Naruto, one leg per trouser leg, Tsunade said to Naruto. Naruto couldn't believe how hard it was to get dressed without his eyes. If you want, I'll send in Hinata to help you, Tsunade said mockingly. At that both Hinata and Naruto blushed fiercely. I'll manage, Naruto said shakily. Tsunade used all of her willpower to keep from howling with laughter. When she had calmed down, she turned to Hinata. Remember Hinata, keep him out of trouble, Tsunade told her. Hinata simply nodded. Naruto had a hard time, but in the end he managed to get all of his clothes on. He managed to find his forehead protector in his trouser pocket. He decided to tie it on over his bandage. He couldn't see himself, but he thought that he looked cool. He applauded himself for thinking to cover his bandage with his headband. It would keep his bandage clean and the metal plate would protect his eyes from any impact. You can come back in now, I'm ready, Naruto called out to the general direction of the door. He heard the door open. Well done Naruto, you can dress by yourself, at least that's something that Hinata won't have to help you with, Tsunade said. Naruto could feel his cheeks heating up again. Are you ready to leave, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked, eager to get away from the mocking Tsunade. Yes, I can't wait to get out of here, Naruto said. He couldn't wait to get some ramen. He hadn't had any in over a week, since before the mission. Okay then, come on, Tsunade said as she walked out the door. Hinata, could you please give me your arm? Naruto said as he reached out his hand. Hinata approached Naruto and placed his hand just above her right elbow. Hinata's heart started to speed and her face began to heat up as she felt his hand grasp her arm. Hinata started to move forward slowly to allow Naruto to get used to the movement. They walked through the door and up the corridor, side by side. Every so often Hinata had to guide Naruto away from a chair which he would have fallen over, or out the way of an oncoming patient. They reached the front desk where Tsunade was waiting patiently for them. Hinata held her left hand out to stop Naruto. Okay kids, have fun, Tsunade said smiling to Hinata. How many people know? Hinata thought to herself as she put her head down to hide the blush. Come on Hinata, let's go, Naruto said cheerily. Hinata started to move forward towards the main doors, guiding Naruto as she did. They stepped outside and Naruto took a deep breath of fresh air. I hate the smell of a hospital, Naruto said as they were walking away from the hospital. Where would you like to go, Naruto-kun? Hinata realized that they were walking but didn't have anywhere to go. You have to ask. To Ichiraku Ramen, please Hinata, Naruto said turning his head toward Hinata. I should have known, giggled Hinata. You must be hungry as well Hinata. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what time it is but it must be near enough to lunchtime, right? It was only about 11:30 but neither Hinata or Naruto have had anything for breakfast, so they were feeling quite hungry. Yes Naruto-kun, I haven't had anything to eat today, Hinata smiled. She often thought about having lunch with Naruto. Although it wasn't a date, it was close enough. Hinata guided Naruto through the streets of Konoha to get to the ramen stand as Naruto was telling her about the missions that he had completed in the past and Hinata was listening intently, occasionally turning left or right until they reached the Ichiraku. We're here Naruto-kun, Hinata said to Naruto as he was explaining how he rescued the villager in their last mission. Hinata guided Naruto inside and sat him down on a stool before sitting herself down next to him. The owner of the ramen stand turned around and welcomed both Hinata and Naruto. Hello, Hinata said, feeling her nervousness returning. Naruto smiled and nodded to him. Can I have a bowl of miso ramen? Hinata, what would you like? Naruto asked. Realizing that this man was friendly, Hinata forced herself not to stutter. May I have a bowl of sweet and sour pork ramen please? Hinata asked politely. Coming right up, the owner said friendlily. Naruto, what happened to your eyes? He asked as he was preparing the bowls. An accident, one of my teammates hit me with a fire jutsu, Naruto replied grimly. In the past half hour he had all but forgotten the fact that he may never see again. It'll be okay, Naruto-kun, Hinata said quietly to Naruto, trying to reassure him. She could sense that he was feeling sad. Naruto turned and gave Hinata a kind smile. Naruto was feeling better and proceeded to explain in intricate detail about his first C-rank turned A-rank mission. He had just got to the part where Kakashi defeated the demon brothers when the owner of the stand placed the bowls of ramen in front of Naruto and Hinata, although Naruto didn't notice. Naruto-kun, our ramen is here, Hinata interrupted Naruto. Is it? I didn't notice. Naruto chuckled. He carefully looked for the bowl with his hands. Once he found it, he instinctively reached for a pair of chopsticks but couldn't find them. Someone moved the chopstick cup since last time I was here, Naruto said while carefully sweeping his hand along the counter looking for it. No, Naruto-kun, it was just out of your reach. Here, Hinata said as she put the chopsticks in Naruto's hand. She jumped slightly from the contact but not as much as before. Naruto didn't seem to notice. Oh, was it? I'm an idiot. Thanks, Hinata. Naruto smiled as he accepted the chopsticks from Hinata and broke them apart. Very carefully he lowered them down into the bowl. He applied pressure to them and brought them up to his mouth, but he didn't get any noodles. Over and over he tried but couldn't get any more than a few noodles at a time. Hinata, who was slurping up her noodles at a steady pace, noticed the trouble Naruto was having when an idea popped into her head. Naruto-kun, would you like some help? It's just that, why, your ramen will get cold before you're finished it, Hinata said. Help? Oh, you don't have to. I'll manage, Naruto said. For some reason he was blushing at this. Naruto-kun, I'm here to help you. I don't mind, Hinata said while still blushing. Okay, thanks, I do have to eat after all, Naruto reasoned. Hinata took the chopsticks from Naruto's hand and lowered them into the bowl, successfully bringing out some ramen noodles. With a gulp she raised the end of the noodles to Naruto's mouth. He jumped slightly but opened his mouth and let the chopsticks in. As Naruto slurped up the noodles, Hinata giggled softly. She used the chopsticks to help the long strands of noodles to his mouth. This continued for a while, with Naruto giving away satisfied sighs as he swallowed each strand of noodles. Hinata was in the middle of raising another strand of noodles when suddenly. Oh, and what do we have here? A very sweet voice sounded behind them. Hinata dropped the chopsticks on the ground and Naruto choked on the noodles he was in the middle of swallowing. Hello, Sakura-chan. Ino-chan. Hinata greeted her two best friends nervously. She prayed that they wouldn't say anything that might give away to Naruto that she liked him. Hello, Hinata-chan. Sakura and Ino said in unison, still grinning horribly. Have you told him yet? Ino mouthed silently to Hinata. No, she mouthed back. Sakura and Ino looked at each other and smiled. They were planning something, thought Hinata. Hello, Naruto, said Ino and Sakura sweetly. Naruto slowly turned around to face the two new arrivals. Hello, Sakura-chan. Ino, said Naruto smiling. Sakura and Ino both saw his forehead protector over his eyes and were confused. Naruto, why do you have your headband covering your eyes? Asked Sakura, not sure what to think. Yeah, can't you see or something? Ino asked jokingly. Exactly. I can't see, Naruto said calmly. What? Why not? Ino asked, completely puzzled. Sakura had an idea of why but didn't say anything. Well, during our last mission we got into a fight with some ninjas. And they damaged your eyes. Ino interrupted. No, Sasuke did. He accidentally hit me with one of his fire techniques. Tsunade healed the burns, but there is some nerve damage. There is a chance that I will recover, but the odds are that I'll never see again, Naruto explained grimly. Oh, we're sorry about that, Naruto. We didn't know, Ino said apologetically. Naruto forced a smile on his face. That's alright, come on, join us for some ramen, Naruto said, his voice beginning to gain some of its energy. Thanks, Naruto, Sakura said as she and Ino sat down. Welcome, the owner said to Ino and Sakura. What will it be? A bowl of shrimp ramen please, requested Sakura. A bowl of vegetable ramen for me please, Ino ordered. Naruto turned back around on his stool to finish his ramen. Hinata, where are my chopsticks? Naruto asked as he was feeling around for them. I dropped them on the ground when Sakura-chan and Ino-chan came. I'll get some more, Hinata told Naruto. She reached out and got another pair of chopsticks and broke them apart. Here Naruto-kun, she said as she continued feeding Naruto the noodles. Sakura looked up from her bowl of ramen to see Hinata helping Naruto. She nudged Ino in the side to get her attention. She saw what they were doing and struggled not to laugh. Sakura turned to Ino. They're the perfect couple, Sakura mouthed. They're so cute, Ino mouthed back. Hinata put the chopsticks down. That's all the noodles, Naruto-kun, Hinata said as Naruto gripped the sides of the bowl and brought it up to his lips. She turned around to her own bowl of ramen, then looked to the right to Ino and Sakura, who had broad smiles on their faces. Hinata's forgotten blush resurfaced. Naruto put down the bowl, having drank the remnants. He let out a powerful satisfied sigh. Thanks Hinata, I could really go for another bowl if you don't mind, Naruto said. He heard a few giggles coming from Ino and Sakura but ignored them. If you want, Naruto-kun, Hinata said kindly. Another miso ramen please, Naruto called to the owner. Hinata continued to eat her ramen. So Naruto heard Ino's voice. How long are you going to be wearing those bandages under your headband? Well, Tsunade Obaa-chan said that they'll stay on for a week. If my eyes haven't started to heal by then, well, I may never see again, Naruto said. He was starting to get used to the idea of going without his sight permanently. So, in that week, does Hinata have to be with you all the time? Ino questioned, while both she and Sakura wore huge grins not unnoticed by Hinata, who felt another blush coming on. No, not all the time. She's going to leave me at night when I go to bed, but she's going to be back in the morning, Naruto explained to Ino. So, an evil smile now decorated Ino's face. Is she going to help you shower? This sent Naruto off his chair and Ino and Sakura over the edge. They howled with laughter, unable to contain themselves any longer. Hinata, who had been innocently finishing her noodles, began choking. No, nothing like that. No, Ino and Sakura were trying to decide whose face was the darker shade of red. Naruto was on the ground, was trying to get back up. His hands found themselves on the base of the stool. He used this as a guide to help him up. Once on his feet, he sat back down very carefully. Hey, are you all right, Naruto-kun? Hinata said, unwilling to look away from her ramen. Slowly their blushes went away. Naruto's ramen came and again he struggled with trying to get any noodles until Hinata offered to help once she had finished her own food. Hinata and Naruto decided to stay with Ino and Sakura at the Ichiraku stand, listening to stories of missions from each Ino, Sakura, and even Hinata. Sakura's stories were mainly retellings of the stories Naruto told Hinata, except with Sasuke as the hero. Hinata was in the middle of a story about when her team had to fill in as waiters at a restaurant on the other side of town. Everyone was on the floor when Hinata described the antics of Kiba and Akamaru when they decided that they could balance numerous plates of food on their limbs at once. We could have done it, if it wasn't for that old bat's handbag getting in the way. The damn manger threw us out when I dropped all those plates on her head, said a voice coming from behind them. Kiba K-kun. Hinata was feeling very embarrassed. The way Hinata told the story didn't portray Kiba and Akamaru in the best light. Hey, Hinata, what are you doing hanging around with these guys? You were meant to be training with us. Kiba said while Akamaru barked. I'm sorry Kiba-kun, I was helping Naruto-kun. I won't be training with you for the next week. Didn't Kurenai-sensei tell you? Although Hinata could speak normally around Naruto and sometimes Sakura and Ino, she still had trouble talking with her teammates. Helping Naruto? Why does that idiot need help? Kiba laughed. At this, Naruto turned around and stood to face the voice. Of course he needs help. Anyone who thinks it's smart to put their headband over their eyes needs help. Kiba continued to laugh, now mockingly waving a hand in front of Naruto's face. Seeing what her teammate was doing to Naruto, an emotion Hinata had rarely felt bubbled within her, anger, towards Kiba. Hinata pushed Kiba back and stepped in between him and Naruto. Naruto sensed that Hinata now stood in between and decided to see what would happen. He knew that if he were to handle it, a fight would definitely ensue. Quote. Stay out of trouble. Naruto remembered Tsunade's earlier warnings. Kiba, it isn't funny, it is very serious. Hinata said as she was taking steps forward, forcing Kiba back. She had dropped the kun at the end of his name. There's a chance that Naruto-kun will never see again, and you think it's funny. Hinata growled. Naruto was impressed and even slightly intimidated by the voice of this new Hinata. Kiba now adopted Hinata's regular stance, shoulders hunched, head down and fingers together. Kiba was scared, his animal-like instincts told him to be afraid, very afraid. Akamaru had long since crawled his way into Kiba's jacket. Hinata, I'm sorry, I didn't think, Kiba said, trying his best to stop Hinata from exploding. He really should have thought before he started hurling insults at Naruto. He knew very well of her crush for Naruto and how angry she got when he made fun of him. He found out shortly after the third test prelims of the Chunin exams. Kiba started to make fun of how Naruto won their fight when they were training. Hinata heard this and almost shouted at Kiba. He was smart enough to see a crush, and he saw the one Hinata had for Naruto. I'm not the one you should be apologizing to, Kiba. Kiba looked up at Hinata with a pleading expression, but Hinata had none of it. She narrowed her eyes and Kiba knew he had the choice to apologize to Naruto or have his internal organs reduced to dust by an angry Hinata. Kiba didn't know exactly how angry Hinata could get. He wasn't sure that she would resort to violence, but he wasn't going to test out that theory. I'm sorry Naruto, I didn't know you really couldn't see, Kiba said, keeping his head down. That's all right Kiba, just try to remember to get a scope of the situation before acting next time, Naruto said cheerfully. For some reason Naruto didn't hold any form of anger, except the anger he held for Neji when he hurt Hinata, but apart from that he wouldn't hold any sort of negative feeling against someone. Naruto often wondered this himself but decided that it was a side effect of his put a smile on everything attitude when he was growing up. Without another word Kiba left with his proverbial tail between his legs. Hinata let out the breath she forgot she was holding and turned around to see the approving smiles of Sakura and Ino, and a thankful smile from Naruto. Thanks Hinata, I probably would have gotten myself into a fight if I had said anything, Naruto said while still smiling. Well, we've spent enough time hanging around here, come on Ino, Sakura said. We'd better leave these two alone, Sakura mouthed to Ino after. Ino smiled back. Hinata realized what they were doing, she blushed and nodded. Goodbye Sakura-chan, Ino-chan, Hinata said with a smile of her own. See you later Hinata-chan, I hope your eyes get better Naruto, Sakura said kindly. Yeah, and just get Hinata to handle anyone who makes fun of you, Ino said jokingly. Good luck, Ino and Sakura mouthed to Hinata as they left. Thanks girls, I'll see you later. Naruto forced a smile. Without another word Ino and Sakura were gone. What would you like to do now, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked kindly. What time is it Hinata? Naruto asked. Hinata looked to the clock on the wall of the stand and was surprised. It's 5 o'clock Naruto-kun. She was surprised that so much time had passed since lunch. Is it? Okay, time flies when you're having fun, Naruto chuckled. Or when you can't see, he added. Hinata noticed the sad tone in his voice. Try not to worry, Naruto-kun, everything just has a way of working itself out, you just have to give it time, Hinata reassured him. She used the same line to reassure herself when her father was telling her that she was weak. You're right, thanks Hinata. Alright, 5 o'clock, I'm usually still training at this time, but it seems that I won't be able to do that for a while, Naruto said, wondering what they could do. I got it, you can help me hone my senses, Naruto said, thinking it was the best idea he ever came up with. Hinata looked puzzled. What do you mean Naruto-kun? Naruto stood up from the stool. I'll explain while we walk, come on, Naruto said as he held out his hand for Hinata. Hinata once again placed his hand on her arm but was feeling reluctant to helping him train. She guessed that she would see what Naruto meant, and if she thought that it might be strenuous to him then she would tell him not to do it. What I had in mind is simple, since I can't use my sight I might as well get my remaining scenes to fill in. Hinata was still confused of what he meant but decided that she would allow him to do this. How do you plan to do this, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked. A smile came across Naruto's face. We'll train my 4 remaining senses individually so they can fill in for my lack of sight. I refuse to give up my life as a ninja whether I lose my sight or not. Naruto said. Hinata smiled at Naruto's display of courage. It's going to be difficult to live as a ninja without your sight, Naruto-kun. If I were in your position I would be too scared to leave the house, Hinata said sadly. Naruto turned his head to face Hinata. Hinata, I'll tell you a secret, I'm scared out of my mind. This morning when I woke up, I didn't know if I was alone in the hospital room. I could hear people talking and walking around, but I couldn't tell if they were inside the room or echoes coming from the corridor, and earlier when Kiba came, I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was going to get into a fight with him. That thought scared me. My point is, Hinata, don't think that I'm not afraid cause I am, but that fear is keeping me going. I want to get stronger despite the loss of my sight. I won't go back on my words. Hinata smiled at this. That's your way of the ninja, Hinata said. Naruto burst out laughing, along with Hinata. After 10 minutes of walking, Hinata and Naruto arrived at the training field. Hinata wasn't sure how to proceed but decided that Naruto had a plan. Okay, this is what I would like you to do, Hinata. Gather 12 rocks and place them in a clock face about 3 meters away from me. Once that is done I will face one stone and you will stand over a random stone in the circle and snap your fingers and I've got to say which stone you're at, understand? Naruto finished explaining. Yes, Naruto-kun, said Hinata as she proceeded to gather the rocks. She placed them in about a 3-meter radius of Naruto who was kneeling down. I'm ready, Naruto-kun, Hinata informed as she placed the last rock down. Good, now stand at any one rock and snap your fingers. Hinata stood at the rock at 8 o'clock from where Naruto was facing and snapped her fingers. After a few seconds of thought he figured out which rock she was at. 6 o'clock, Naruto said triumphantly. Hinata sighed, this could take a while. No, Naruto-kun, 8 o'clock, Hinata could just hear Naruto cursing under his breath. Alright, let's try this again. Hinata changed to the 3 o'clock rock and snapped her fingers. 2 o'clock, Naruto said with just as much triumph as before. 3, Hinata sighed. They kept at this for a few hours after the sun went down before Hinata decided that it was time to go see Tsunade. Naruto did manage to sense where Hinata was by the end of the session but Hinata wasn't sure if it was just pure luck. Although his guesses were only within 2 hours of where Hinata was standing, Naruto was still feeling proud of himself. I'm sure I could have sensed you better if my eyes weren't hurting, Naruto said trying to make an excuse. He felt Hinata jerk to a stop. Hinata, what is it? Ah. As Hinata stopped, Naruto kept on moving, which unfortunately made him trip over a large rock which was sticking out of the ground. Hinata saw that Naruto was falling and tried to stop him. Her grip on his arm turned Naruto around as he was falling so he would land on his back, but Naruto's weight brought her down on top of him. With a grunt, Naruto hit the ground and a split second later a weight dropped down on top of him. He could only guess that it was Hinata. Both blushed heavily at this. Hinata struggled to get up. Her arms were weighed down underneath Naruto's body. Naruto just lay there completely entranced by Hinata's sweet smell. They were so close that they could feel each other's body heat. Hinata was struggling to free her hands to get up because her face was unbelievably close to Naruto's. She managed to wriggle her hands out from behind Naruto and pushed herself up. She felt very weak-kneed from the closeness to Naruto but found the strength to stand. Naruto was busy thinking about how nice that felt. Nice. Oh god, that damn perverted hermit is having an effect on me. Okay, clear my mind and stand up, Naruto said inside his head. Are you alright, Naruto-kun? Naruto heard Hinata's voice. I'm fine, thanks Hinata. Come on, let's get going, Naruto said shakily. He held out his hand and felt Hinata's hand place it on her arm as she began to guide him again. I'm sorry for making you fall in, Naruto-kun, it's just that you said that you had a pain in your eyes, and that's meant to be a sign that they're healing, right? Naruto stopped abruptly at Hinata's words. It wasn't your fault that I fell, but you're right, my eyes are healing, Naruto said happily. They soon reached the village headquarters. We're here, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, her stuttering now forgotten. Okay, let's go see what Oba-chan has to say, Naruto said, starting to feel the day catching up to him. He couldn't wait to go home and crawl into bed. He then widely thought about what it must be like to fall asleep with Hinata in his arms like she was earlier. After he realized what he just thought, he turned bright red. Naruto-kun, are you all right? You seem to be heating up, Hinata asked, concerned as she pushed the doors to the building open. I'm fine, just a bit tired, Naruto said, trying to stop blushing. Hinata guided Naruto, followed a sign saying, Hokage office, up some stairs and along a corridor. There was a Junin standing guard outside the office. He nodded to Hinata, signaling that she could go in. Tsunade had probably informed him that they were coming. She opened the door and guided Naruto inside before closing the door behind her. What Hinata saw was hard not to laugh at. Tsunade had seemingly fallen asleep over her desk, using a number of scrolls as a pillow. She was snoring, but not very loudly. Hinata brought Naruto closer to the desk. Hokage-sama, Hinata called out, trying to wake her up, but to no avail. Here, Hinata, let me try, Naruto said before taking in a deep breath. I'll give you 10-to-1 odds at 3-card Monty. Tsunade sat bone-breakingly upright and was wide awake at this. I'll take those odds, she shouted, instinctively taking an easy bet. Wah, Naruto. Don't do that again, Tsunade said as she realized that there was no bet to be had. Naruto was busy laughing his head off. I see Hinata has kept you out of trouble, Naruto. I'm glad I asked her to take care of you and not someone like Jiraiya. Hinata, help him into a seat while I take a look at him, please, Tsunade asked. Hinata helped Naruto into a chair that was in front of the desk. Tsunade came round her desk and sat in a second chair opposite Naruto. Naruto, please remove your forehead protector, Tsunade asked as she prepared an analyzing technique. Naruto removed his headband to expose the bandages. Hey Oba-chan, my eyes have started to hurt, Naruto informed excitedly. Tsunade concentrated on the jutsu instead of giving in to the urge to strike Naruto across the head. That's a good sign, but I would have expected for the pain to surface sooner, Tsunade said. She noticed the smile disappear from Naruto's face and once again felt bad for making Naruto feel down. Well, Naruto, your eyes have started to heal, but slowly. I'm afraid it still looks grim, Tsunade said before she cancelled the technique. So anyway, how did you two get on today? Tsunade asked, trying to change the subject. It was fun, although it was a bit difficult at times, Naruto replied with a chuckle. Hinata giggled as well. I also improved my hearing skills, in case I have to get used to a sightless life, Naruto said. Okay, then that's good too. Here. It's getting late, so why don't you take Naruto home, Hinata? Naruto, do you have a spare key to your apartment lying around? Tsunade asked. I think so. Why? Naruto was curious. I just think that Hinata should have a key so she can get in the morning and so she can lock up at night, Tsunade told Naruto. Oh, alright, I'll give it to her later, then, Naruto said. Good, now off you go. I don't want you falling asleep over my desk, Tsunade said, feeling her eyelids beginning to feel heavy. Okay then, come on Hinata, let's go, Naruto said as he put his forehead protector over his eyes. Naruto stood up and Hinata reached out for his hand and placed it on her arm. Good night, Hokage-sama, said Hinata as she letted him out of the office. Tsunade just waved her hand as she fought a yawn. Hinata led Naruto out of the main gates of the village headquarters and proceeded down the main street of the village. Hinata, do you know where you're going? Naruto wasn't sure if she knew where he lived. Yes, Naruto-kun, I've seen you enter an apartment block a few times in the west of the village. In truth, she had been secretly watching him and had seen him go up the stairs of his apartment, but she wasn't about to say that part. That's good, I'd have a hard time trying to guide you, Naruto said. They walked for about 10 minutes without one word passing between them, until Naruto, who was desperate to break the silence, decided to say something. Hinata, thanks for helping me today. I don't know where I'd be if I didn't have you to guide me. If it were Sakura guiding me, I would probably have gotten into a fight with Kiba or walked into a lamp post, Naruto said. You're welcome, Naruto-kun. I actually enjoyed myself today, smiled Hinata. Before they realized it, they had arrived at Naruto's apartment. Naruto-kun, we're here, Hinata informed Naruto. Okay, my apartment is on the second floor, Naruto said as Hinata led him toward the stairs. Noticing the upcoming hazard with a blind Naruto climbing stairs, Hinata turned to Naruto. Naruto-kun, be very careful here, put your other hand on the rail and don't rush, Hinata warned him. Naruto just nodded. Slowly but surely they climbed the stairs and soon enough they reached the top. It's the second door, he told Hinata. She guided him over and Naruto got out his key and unlocked the door. Blushing from the prospect of seeing the inside of Naruto's apartment, she stepped inside with Naruto. She searched on the wall for a light switch so she could guide Naruto around. She found it and flicked it to the on position. When the light filled the room, Hinata was surprised that Naruto could the place so tidy. She maneuvered him around the few pieces of furniture Naruto did own and through an open door she guessed was the bedroom. She found the light switch and flicked it. Apart from a few scrolls on the floor and a cluttered desk, it was clean. Thanks, Hinata. I can take it from here, Naruto said as he walked into his bed. Naruto-kun, I've been told to stay until you are in bed, and you were meant to give me a key, Hinata said, amazed she didn't stutter, even if she did blush, but at least Naruto couldn't see that. Naruto nodded as he reached out a hand to find his bedside table. Once he found it, he put his hand in a bowl and he started to search around in. Hinata could hear the jingle of coins and other metallic objects before Naruto produced a key. He held it out in front of and waited for Hinata to take it. Here's the key. It's a bit difficult to turn, but just jiggle it a few times and it should work, Naruto said as he sat down on the bed. Thank you, Naruto-kun, I'll wait outside. Hinata tried not to laugh when she noticed the penguin pajamas on his bed on her way out. I bet he must look so cute in those, Hinata thought to herself before blushing furiously. Oh god, I left my penguin pajamas out before I left, I hope she didn't see them. Naruto thought as he felt the night clothing on his bed. He decided not to worry about it and started to undress. Hinata waited patiently outside his room. She heard a few curses coming from inside the room, but nothing that would merit her needing to go inside and help him. Naruto proceeded to change into his pajamas with a little difficulty, but managed to do it in the end. It wasn't long before he was curled up in bed. Thanks, Hinata, you can go now. If you can come here around about 9 o'clock, that'll be great. Naruto called out to the door. Good night, Naruto-kun, see you tomorrow, Hinata replied as she made her way to the front door. If she was anyone else, I probably would have shouted at her for saying, see, I wonder why I didn't say anything to her. Before too long Naruto was asleep and dreaming, not about falling down a hole or being pushed around, but of a certain blue-haired girl who he was rapidly growing fond of. After a blissful dream, Naruto woke up feeling very relaxed. After remembering his dream, Naruto felt very hot in the cheeks. In this dream, Hinata had confessed her love for him. They spent the entire dream holding each other and saying sweet things to each other. The thing that scared Naruto the most was that he almost groaned in disappointment when he realized that it had all been a dream. He sighed deeply and waited for Hinata to come for him. The lack of birdsong outside suggested to Naruto that it was still pre-dawn. Naruto was starting to fully appreciate his sightless state. He never knew how calming the sound of the wind could be, or the crunch of dirt beneath his sandals as he walked, or the heavenly voice of Hinata. Damn it, why do I keep on getting these thoughts? It's all that damn pervert's fault. He's having a bad influence on me, Naruto grumbled to himself. Besides, it's not like she would like me in that way, Naruto added sorrowfully. All of a sudden Naruto felt something rumble around in his bowels. Oh boy, I completely forgot, Naruto said to himself. Knowing the consequences of having a bowel movement here in his bed, Naruto rolled out of bed and ran to the bathroom. Through many nights of staggering around his apartment in darkness, Naruto could walk his way to the bathroom with his eyes closed, well, when he could see, that is. On his quest for the bathroom, he managed to hit his foot off the bedside table. walk into the door and knock over a stack of scrolls that were near his door. Naruto proceeded to run into the bathroom and slam the door, to take care of business. Hinata awoke from a similar dream to Naruto's, although she, usually, wakes up from that dream, except when she has dreams of not being good enough in her clan's eyes. Looking over at her clock, she realizes that it is just after 6. She decides to get up instead of risking oversleeping again. She removes the covers and gets up, and walks over to her wardrobe to pick out her clothes for the day. Once she decided on her clothes, she took them into her bathroom. She removed her nightclothes and stepped into the bathtub and turned on the shower. After she had washed her hair and cleansed her body, she stepped out of the tub and dried herself. Then she put on her clothes for the day. After brushing her teeth and combing her hair, she walked out of the bathroom and proceeded out of her room and downstairs to breakfast, where she met her father. Good morning, father," Hinata said, feeling her head drop down. Hiashi eyed his daughter. "I have been told that you have walking around with Uzumaki Naruto," Hiashi said unemotionally. That's true, father, but and I hear that you stood up to your teammate when he made fun of Uzumaki Naruto." Hinata briefly raised her head. She wasn't sure anymore of where he was going with this. "Yes, father," Hinata replied. Hinata could see her father's face and he appeared to be smiling. Hinata raised her head to get a better look at her father. He was definitely smiling. It was small, but there was no mistaking. Father." Hinata was unsure about her father. "It looks like you are growing more confident, my daughter. Maybe I was wrong about you," Hiashi said before turning around and leaving a speechless Hinata to her own thoughts. "He has never called me his daughter before. I have never heard him admitting that he might be wrong either," Hinata said to herself. After a few minutes of recovery, she decided to continue to the dining hall for breakfast but couldn't keep her thoughts off her father. As she sat down, a servant placed a tray of breakfast in front of her. It was a small breakfast, just a bowl of rice and a plate of small cooked fish with some green tea. As she ate, she felt another presence in the room. She turned around to see Neji walking towards her. She began to feel uneasy. She remembered how she bumped into him the previous day and how she didn't apologize. Hinata sat back around in her chair, waiting to hear what Neji had to say. He drew near and pulled out a chair and sat next to Hinata. "It's that Naruto, isn't it, Hinata-sama?" Neji said. Hinata looked toward Neji. He no longer thought of her as an inferior person but now as a caring individual. Although he was still easily annoyed, Neji was now a likable guy. "It seems that everyone but Naruto-kun knows," Hinata thought as she smiled with a faint blush on her cheeks. "Is it really that obvious, Neji-ni-san?" Hinata asked. Neji's face now became very serious. "Hinata-sama, are you sure you want to do it? Remember, you don't have to. There are other ways of becoming stronger. Are you sure you thought it through?" Neji asked. Hinata knew what he was talking about. "I know there are other ways, but I've thought it through. I thought about it almost all day on Monday, up until I heard about Naruto-kun, and I have made up my mind," Hinata said. "Hinata-sama, the first time I tried it, my body almost ripped apart. I urge you not to go through with it. I acknowledge that you have gotten stronger but I still think it's too soon," Neji said. "Thank you, Neji-ni-san, but my father is starting to have greater expectations of me. I just don't want to let him down again. I want to do this," Hinata said. Neji looked at Hinata with a hint of admiration. At this, Hinata stood up and walked towards the door. Although it was only 7:30, she decided to go out for a walk to think things over. "I've always wanted to become stronger but I can never seem to amount to anything. Now, I'm becoming stronger, I'm changing for the better, I know that I'm ready," Hinata thought. Once Naruto had finished, he stood up and washed his hands and brushed his teeth, and noticing the smell around him, he searched around for his can of air freshener and sprayed the air, replacing it with a fresh natural smell. He sighed in relief and walked back to his bedroom, deciding that it would be the safest place to wait for Hinata. While he waited, he thought he might as well change, but he had forgotten where he put his clothes last night. "I should really stop throwing my... oh god no. My boxers. She's going to see my boxers on the ground. What am I going to do?" Naruto shouted as the realization hit him. so he spent the remainder of his time on the floor trying to find his clothes, but he found nothing but his forehead protector, which he placed on his bedside table for later. A few more minutes of crawling around on the ground and Naruto heard the locks of his door begin to turn. Oh crap, Naruto said to himself. Quickly he got to his feet and got back to his bed, and pulled the covers up to his neck as if he were asleep. Maybe she won't see them, Naruto thought hopefully. Who am I kidding? Of course she'll see them. She's going to have to hand me my clothes after all, he reminded himself. He heard the door open and shut, and shortly after he heard his bedroom door open and someone enter. It had to be Hinata. Naruto-kun, are you asleep? He heard Hinata's sweet voice. Naruto decided to stay quiet. He heard the opening of his cupboard and the clatter of clothes hangers. She must be getting some clean clothes for the day. I wonder why I didn't think of that. He then heard a squeak, one that he heard every time he opened his underwear drawer. Naruto gulped silently at this. He heard another squeak, only this one seemed to come from Hinata. A few seconds later he heard the drawer in the cupboard close and footsteps approach him. And Naruto-kun, it's time to get up, Hinata said, nervous about holding Naruto's clothing. Naruto then felt a hand on his shoulder and gently shake him. Naruto decided to cut it out and wake up. Huh, Hinata-chan, is that you? Naruto asked, not even noticing that he added Chan at the end of her name. Hinata blushed furiously but responded. Yes, Naruto-kun, it is me. I have some of your clean clothes, seeing as that you have been wearing your other clothes for a couple of days. Thanks, Hinata-chan. Just put them down on the bed please, Naruto asked. Something felt different. Oh crap, I called her Chan. It just felt so natural though, and she didn't seem to mind, Naruto thought as he sat up in bed, causing the cover to fall down. I was right, he does look cute in those, thought Hinata while her blush intensified. Naruto felt his clothes, trying to figure out which piece is what. He found his t-shirt and proceeded to remove his cap and pajama top. Hinata felt like she was going to faint from this, so she decided to wait outside. Naruto heard his door open and close. Oops, I should have asked her to wait outside before I started getting changed, Naruto thought as he started to blush. He decided that it was easier to get changed while he was lying down, so he didn't take as much time as before. Once he was fully dressed, he reached out to the bedside table and picked off his forehead protector where he left it a few minutes ago. Naruto swung his legs out of bed so that he was sitting on the bed and slipped on his sandals. Now completely dressed, Naruto walked towards the door to where Hinata was. He placed his hand on the handle and opened the door. He heard a noise that sounded like a gasp. He took one step forward before he felt something fall back on him. Hinata was leaning against the other side of the door trying to forget how cute Naruto looked in his pajamas when suddenly the door opened and she fell back. By reflex, Naruto stuck out his hands to catch whatever it was that fell on him. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, I didn't mean to fall on you again, I was just thinking, Hinata said as Naruto put her back on her feet. Don't worry about it, Hinata-chan, it was my fault, I should have called to you first, Naruto said cheerfully. Naruto-kun, would you like some breakfast? Hinata asked, her embarrassment subsiding. I would love some, Hinata-chan, I haven't eaten since the ramen stand yesterday, said Naruto. Hinata smiled. Okay then, have a seat at the table and I'll prepare some ramen for you, Hinata said. You know me too well, Hinata-chan. Naruto laughed as he sat down. Hinata was starting to get used to him calling her that. What would you like to do after breakfast, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked as she prepared the ramen. Well, I suppose we could go and meet up with my team. I still haven't spoken with Sasuke yet, Naruto said unemotionally. Okay then, that's what we'll do, Hinata said, pouring the boiled water into the cup of ramen and the rest in a teacup so she could have something to drink while she waited for Naruto. What do you plan to say to him when we meet him? Hinata said, being careful not to say, see. She placed the cup of ramen in Naruto's hand and then sat down with her cup of tea. I'll just wait to hear what he has to say, Naruto replied before eating his ramen. He was getting better at it. Hinata decided that she wouldn't have to help him this time. Shame, thought Hinata as she sipped her tea. Hinata, I've been meaning to ask, what does your family think of you hanging around with me? I know how everyone thinks of me and your family won't be much different, will they? Naruto asked. Hinata was unsure how to answer. It's true that my father thought badly of you, but no, I think he is changing his mind. When I spoke to him this morning he didn't seem angry that I was with you. In fact, he is starting to look at me differently, Hinata said, remembering her previous talk with her father and with Neji. Well, that's good, Hinata. If he is starting to see what I see, then your life should get easier, right? Naruto said. I just don't want to let him down. I may be changing, but I don't think that I'm getting much stronger, Hinata said a little sadly. Naruto was confused. Hinata, you are much stronger than you think. You had the courage to stand up to Neji when he was saying that you were nothing, and just yesterday you faced down your own teammate when he insulted one of your friends. Hinata looked up at this and smiled. Thank you, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, feeling relieved of her past worries. You're welcome, Hinata-chan. Naruto smiled his most caring and warmest smiles, which made Hinata feel very happy about herself. Well, I'm finished with my ramen, shall we leave? Naruto said while still smiling. Yes, Naruto-kun, Hinata replied as she finished her tea and set it down on the table. Hinata stood up and walked around to Naruto and placed his hand on her arm and carefully guided him out of his apartment. Sakura and Sasuke were both waiting for Kakashi at the bridge where they usually meet. It's the first time they've seen their sensei since they got back from their last mission, and Sakura is feeling a bit uneasy since it just didn't feel right without Naruto, although she was happy that it meant a chance to get Naruto and her best friend to hook up, but she couldn't shake the thoughts of Naruto never being able to see again. This was the first time she was alone with Sasuke without trying to flirt with him. Sasuke notices this and decides to be the one to start talking. Hey Sakura, do you know why Naruto isn't here? I haven't seen him since the mission, Sasuke said. Sakura looked up truly shocked. She never knew Sasuke to say anything when he didn't have to. He doesn't know, Sakura thought to herself. Sasuke-kun, Naruto is injured, Sakura said, unsure of how to tell him. Injured, Sasuke said, his voice had the slightest hint of remorse. He can't see, Sasuke-kun, when the flames hit his face, they damage the nerves and cost Naruto his sight, and the chances are not in favor of him getting his sight back, Sakura explained, afraid she just made him feel guilty. It's my fault. If I had only aimed slightly to the left, Naruto would still be able to see, but now, he will probably never be able to live as a ninja again, Sasuke said, looking down in shame. You mustn't think like that, Sasuke-kun. If it was slightly to the right, then you would have killed Naruto. He'll be alright, Sakura said, desperate to raise his spirits. They remained silent for another 20 minutes before they heard Naruto's voice. Sakura turned and waved to Hinata, and Sasuke stood up straight. Knowing that Naruto was approaching, Sasuke shot a glance to Sakura and she looked towards him. Don't worry about it, Naruto doesn't hold grudges, Sakura whispered to Sasuke. Sasuke merely nodded. Hi Naruto. Good morning Hinata-chan, Sakura said cheerfully. Hinata smiled and nodded. Hello Sakura-chan, Naruto said smiling, which dimmed when he felt the presence of Sasuke. Hey, Sasuke, Naruto greeted, his voice lacking energy. Naruto, Sasuke responded. An awkward silence loomed over them. Kakashi-sensei is late again. I see, Naruto said, breaking the silence. Sasuke decided to say something. Naruto, I'm sorry, Sasuke struggled to say. Everyone raised their heads and looked at Sasuke with awe. Don't worry about it Sasuke, Naruto said happily. Hinata smiled and looked at Naruto and placed a comforting hand on his. With a smile, Sasuke turned around and looked over the side of the bridge. Naruto expected no less. What have you two been up to then? Sakura asked Naruto and Hinata. Nothing much, Hinata-chan has just been helping me around, Naruto explained. Hinata-chan, Sakura thought as she broke into a smile. Hinata caught sight of this and blushed. She could tell what she was thinking. Oh, okay then, what are you doing here? I don't think you'll be allowed to do missions in your current state, Sakura asked. What? I'm not allowed to visit my own friends, Naruto asked, faking hurt. Ah, come on Naruto, you know I didn't mean it like that. Sakura smiled as Hinata and Naruto smiled back. Yo, guys, a voice came from behind them. You're late. Sakura screamed at her sensei. Naruto stayed quiet because he didn't have to be there. Ah, well the thing is, I put my forehead protector over the wrong eye and as I was walking, I started to copy a street mime who I saw on the way here, Kakashi said as he acted like he was trapped in a box. Sakura and Naruto were cursing under their breaths while Hinata giggled at Kakashi performing a mime. Given away by her giggle, Kakashi looked toward Hinata, who averted her eyes and then he looked to Naruto. Remembering that he was told by Tsunade that he had lost his sight, Kakashi decided to say something. So Naruto, is my cover up an eye with your forehead protector style catching on? Kakashi chuckled. Naruto forced a laugh, knowing that he was trying to make light of the situation. So what are you guys going to be doing today then? Naruto asked Kakashi. Well, that's the thing, I kinda forgot to tell them that there will be no missions for Team 7 until your condition is decided, Kakashi said. Naruto sensed an intent violent aura coming from both Sakura and Sasuke. Naruto knew what was about to happen, so he put his arm in front of Hinata and gently pushed her back while walking out of the line between Sasuke, Sakura and Kakashi. Naruto-kun, what are you? Trust me Hinata-chan, this could get ugly, Naruto told Hinata as he awaited the following moments. You mean to tell us that we didn't even have to be here? Sakura screamed. And you have the nerve to show up late as well, Sasuke said, although not as loud as Sakura. It was dripping with anger. Didn't I tell you about the mime? Kakashi questioned, once again pretending to be trapped in a box, seemingly oblivious to their intent. Without another word, Sakura and Sasuke charged at Kakashi, screaming like banshees. A volley of kicks and punches were delivered to Kakashi only to have him disappear. A goddamn shadow clone! Sakura screamed. Naruto decided to try and defuse the situation before they decided to hunt for Kakashi's skin. Well, since you guys aren't going to train, why don't you hang out with Hinata-chan and I? Naruto suggested happily. Sure, Sasuke said unemotionally. Secretly he was happy to be invited. It showed that Naruto didn't care about what he did to him. I have to agree with Sasuke-kun, I can't go. What? You're actually going, Sasuke-kun? Well, my day is free, I'll come as well, Sakura said. It wasn't that she didn't want to hang out with Naruto and Hinata, it's just that she would prefer to hang out with Sasuke. Great, let's go, Naruto said as he pumped his fist into the air and began to walk forward. Unfortunately he forgot that he should have taken hold of Hinata's arm first. He cursed himself as he tripped over yet another rock sticking out the ground. Naruto fell flat on his face while Sakura snickered at him. Hinata, however, was a lot more concerned. Naruto-kun, are you alright? Hinata asked as she helped Naruto to his feet. It seems that every time I let go of you, I fall over, Naruto joked before both Hinata and himself remembered what had happened the previous night. Both blushed simultaneously. Sakura noticed this and wondered what had happened. It won't be long before these two get together, inner Sakura laughed. Hinata helped Naruto to his feet and placed his hand firmly on her arm. Naruto-kun, please try not to move unless you are holding on to me, Hinata told Naruto. Sasuke gave Sakura a questioning look. Just wait, Sakura mouthed to Sasuke and winked. Sasuke mentally kicked himself for blushing but was relieved to see that Sakura had turned back to Hinata and Naruto with a blush of her own. Maybe she didn't notice, but why did I blush in the first place? Sasuke thought to himself, but unknown to him, Sasuke's blush did not go unnoticed by Sakura. What was that for? Inner Sakura said, almost unable to speak. Hey, Naruto, what are we going to do today? Sakura asked, breaking everyone's line of thought. Well, we could start by getting some ramen, then decide what to do from there, Naruto suggested. Fair enough, Sasuke said. Again, Naruto, we spent almost all day yesterday at the ramen stand, Sakura said, trying not to sound too irritated. I didn't say we should spend all day there again, I just thought that we could think about what we could do today, at the stand and get something to eat while we're there. Besides, you always think better on a full stomach, Naruto explained. Fine, let's go, Sakura said, taking the lead with Sasuke. Afterwards, Naruto started to walk forward as he felt Hinata guide him. The four made their way to the ramen stand and listened to Naruto explain his blind training methods. Sasuke, Sakura and Hinata all had their own thoughts on Naruto. I can't believe how determined Naruto is. Even after he lost his sight he continues to push forward, Sasuke thought with admiration. He's strong and a true friend. I hope he gets his sight back, Sakura thought. Naruto-kun, you are truly strong. I only wish I had the courage to tell you how I feel about you. Hinata smiled as she listened to Naruto explain about yesterday's training. When they arrived at the Ichiraku, Naruto was explaining that no matter what happened he would get through this. Naruto-kun, we're here, again, Hinata said to Naruto. Great. Well, let's go inside already, Naruto said, earning him smirks from his companions. Hinata guided Naruto inside and helped him onto one of the stools before sitting herself down. Sasuke and Sakura sat down next to Hinata. Welcome, greeted the owner as he looked at his latest customers. What'll it be? He asked happily. Miso for me please, Naruto ordered excitedly. Some chicken ramen for me please, Hinata requested politely. Same for me please, Sakura asked. I'll have today's special, Sasuke said. The owner smiled and turned around and started to put the necessary ingredients into the bowls. So, any ideas yet? Sakura looked around the group. Quote. Quote. I'll take that as a no, then shall I? Sakura said as she rested her head on her propped-up arm. The annoying 3-minute waiting time for ramen passed and no suggestions had been put forward. Here you are, enjoy, the owner said as he placed the 4 bowls in front of his customers. Maybe the ramen will help, Sakura said as she picked out some chopsticks and started to eat. Hinata reached for 2 pairs of chopsticks and handed one to Naruto. Do you think you'll manage, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked as she broke apart her chopsticks. I'll do my best, but can I count on your help if I run into trouble, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked cheekily. Of course, Naruto-kun, Hinata replied in the same tone, smiling. Naruto broke apart his chopsticks and carefully lowered them into the bowl. Strange, Sasuke thought, noticing the interaction between Naruto and Hinata. He filed away his thoughts for the time being and turned his attention back on his food. Naruto was having difficulty with his ramen, but not as much as the previous day. Today he was able to catch strands of ramen, although everyone was finished before him. Naruto-kun, I think that I should help you, Hinata said quietly to Naruto, while Sakura had turned her gaze on Sasuke. Alright, Hinata-chan, I guess I do need help. Who'da thought that you need to be able to see, to eat ramen, Naruto replied, holding out his chopsticks. Hinata smiled as she accepted them and began to feed him like the previous day. Sakura turned around when she heard Hinata giggling softly at Naruto's slurping. She smiled at the two of them and idly thought about doing the same with Sasuke. She turned to face the center of her thoughts and was surprised to see him staring at her, with his head resting on his propped-up arm. Inner Sakura raised an eyebrow as Sakura mirrored Sasuke. About 3 seconds later Sasuke realized what he was doing and that Sakura was staring back at him. Another dreaded blush tainted his face. He did his best to hide it, but it proved useless as Sakura started to softly laugh at him. Sasuke even smirked at her laughter. Hinata turned around to see what was going on and smiled to see Sasuke and Sakura gazing into each other's eyes. She turned back to Naruto. Sasuke and Sakura-chan seemed to be getting along very well. Naruto-kun, Hinata whispered to Naruto. Naruto's face lit up in a smile. Really? Grinned Naruto. I think it won't be long until Sakura-chan finally gets her wish, Naruto whispered. And Naruto-kun. I thought you liked Sakura-chan, Hinata cautiously said. Well, as of a few weeks ago, I've given up on her. Besides, she loves Sasuke, Naruto explained, trying to keep quiet seeing as though Sasuke was only 2 persons away. Did I hear him right? He's given up on her. Then I have a chance. Hinata squealed in happiness in her mind. That's very nice of you, Naruto-kun, Hinata said, trying not to sound too excited. Hey, why don't we go to the lake? We could sit on the banks and hang out there for a while, Sasuke suggested, breaking everyone's thoughts. Secretly he just thought of it to break the silence between Sakura and himself. That sounds nice, Hinata said. Naruto made an agreeable noise and Sakura smiled and nodded. Sakura and Sasuke stood up and left while Hinata aided Naruto to his feet and soon followed. As they walked, Naruto was wondering about something. Hinata-chan, why did you come to see me in the first place, in the hospital? Naruto asked. Hinata blushed and tried to dodge the obvious answer. Why, you've done so much for me that I felt that it was the least I could do, Hinata replied. She was glad that she didn't lie to him, and that she didn't have to tell him about her feelings for him. I'm really happy you did. Naruto smiled as he gently patted her arm. After a brisk 15-minute walk they arrived at the banks of a lake on the outskirts of the village, next to the field where Naruto trained the night before. The afternoon sun was shining down and warming the ground. They walked closer to the lake and sat down on the grass and lay back. This is nice, Sasuke-kun, Sakura said, it's so relaxing. It's the perfect time of day for it as well, Hinata pointed out. I could stay here all day, this is so relaxing, Naruto said, feeling very comfortable, with the light breeze, the sun shining and the sounds of the waves crashing on the banks. Sasuke sounded. Clearly he was feeling as comfortable as the others. Come on, Hinata-chan, let's go get a few things, Sakura said as she grunted to get up. Do I have to? Hinata said, really not wanting to get up. I just thought that if we are going to stay here all day then we might get a few things and bring them here, so you and I could go to my house and gather together some stuff, Sakura explained, dusting off the grass that was on her behind. Alright, fine, Hinata pouted as she struggled to get to her feet. Okay guys, you heard me, we'll be back in about 10 minutes, Sakura said as the two girls walked off together. Once he could no longer sense the girls, an evil grin cracked wide open on Naruto's face. Sasuke, what do you think of Sakura-chan? Naruto could hear the change in Sasuke's breathing patterns. Well, I don't think she's annoying anymore, Sasuke said, picking his words carefully. Really? Naruto said, intrigued. So does that mean that you're starting to like her? Sasuke once again felt like his face was a hot air balloon. What about you? I thought you liked Sakura, Sasuke asked evadedly. Not anymore, and don't change the subject. I refuse to answer the question, Sasuke said. So you're not saying you don't like Sakura-chan, Naruto said, grinning like a madman. Quote. Sasuke wisely stayed quiet. Naruto was ecstatic with his victory but decided to shut up before he was told. The two girls were walking through the streets leading to Sakura's house. Sakura-chan, do you think Naruto-kun would ever go out with me? Hinata asked one of her best friends. Well, I'm not going to pretend that I know how Naruto thinks, but I do think that he's growing fond of you. I think you're in for a chance, Sakura said hopefully. She smiled as she saw Hinata do the same. What about Sasuke and yourself? What do you think your chances are? Hinata asked. I'm not sure. I think he's starting to notice me, but I'm not sure, Sakura said doubtfully. I wouldn't say that, Hinata said, remembering his attitude at the ramen stand. Just give it time. Thanks, Hinata-chan, Sakura smiled. They arrived at Sakura's house and went inside. Sakura's mother wasn't home at the time, so she was free to gather up whatever she wanted without question. They left the house with a few ground blankets and bag full of snacks and headed toward the field where Sasuke and Naruto were left. Sakura-chan, do you think it was a good idea to leave Sasuke and Naruto-kun alone? Hinata asked. Yeah, Hinata-chan, sure, well, we'll see, Sakura replied, unsure of what to say. Back with Naruto and Sasuke, they hadn't said anything to each for a while. Sasuke, why don't you like Sakura-chan? Naruto asked. I never said I didn't like her, Sasuke said. He decided he should turn the tables on Naruto before he had a chance to say anything else. So, if you don't like Sakura, then who do you like? Sasuke questioned. I don't know, I don't think about these things, Naruto said. For some reason he thought about Hinata and blushed. Idiot, you really are blind, Sasuke said. It's your fault, Naruto threw back. No, idiot, you can't see what is in front of your face. Sasuke tried to point out that someone liked him. Of course I can't see what's in front of my face. I'm blind, remember, Naruto said, unable to grasp what Sasuke was saying. You, they, forget it, Sasuke screamed in frustration, falling back on the grass. Naruto sensed two people approaching. We're back, Sakura said in a sing-song voice. Sakura set the bag of snacks on the ground and spread out the blankets. Hinata walked over to Naruto. Naruto-kun, we've brought blankets so you don't have to sit on the grass anymore, Hinata told him. Thanks Hinata-chan. Naruto smiled happily as he held out his arm to Hinata. She helped him to his feet and guided him over to the blankets and let Naruto lie back down. With a smile, Hinata turned around and helped Sakura unpack the snacks. Sasuke went unnoticed as he slipped onto the blanket, picked up an apple and crunched into it. Hinata picked up 2 bottles of water. Here, Naruto-kun, she said as she placed the bottle in his hand and lay down next to Naruto, trying to get as comfortable as she was before Sakura hauled her up to go with her. This is nice, so comfortable, Hinata said dreamily. She looked over at Sasuke who had apparently fallen asleep. She decided that it would be best to stay quiet. Sakura had caught on and lay down as well, very close to Sasuke, in the hopes of an accident. Naruto didn't actually fall asleep, he just lay there thinking of what Sasuke said. A few hours went by and the sun was setting and the winds had become colder. No one had said anything, they just felt at peace, not needing to talk. As the air around them got colder, they decided to get up and go to Sakura's house before parting ways for the evening. Naruto decided that his training was something special between Hinata and himself and so decided not to do it that night. They walked back to Sakura's house, carrying the blankets and the bag of rubbish. Once again no one spoke, but once again, it was a comfortable silence. After the 15-minute walk, they entered the door of the house and sat down in the living room. Sakura's mother must have been up the stairs. How about some hot chocolate, everybody, before you all go home? Sakura asked as they were all comfortable in the seats around the room. Yes, please, I haven't had hot chocolate in ages, Naruto said happily. That would be nice. Hinata accepted the offer, while Sasuke just nodded. Great, I've got some in the kitchen, Sakura said as she walked out of the room. Today's been a good day, don't you think, Hinata-chan, Sasuke? Naruto asked, breaking the silence. Yeah, I don't think I've ever enjoyed doing nothing so much, Hinata joked. S'alright, Sasuke said. I'm glad that you and I sorted things out, Sasuke, Naruto said. Yeah, Sasuke seemed unwilling to talk very much. The three of them waited patiently for Sakura to return, which she did a few minutes later with a tray of mugs and marshmallows. Hinata took a mug and handed it to Naruto. Here's your hot chocolate, Naruto-kun, would you like some marshmallows with it? Hinata asked, her hand hovering over the bowl of marshmallows. Just a few, please, Naruto asked kindly. Hinata dropped a handful in Naruto's mug. Enjoy, Hinata said, as she accepted a mug of her own with a few marshmallows as well. The atmosphere made by the hot chocolate and the sound of the wind outside made it seem very homely and safe. Sakura, you have a long day tomorrow, you'd better get a shower and go to bed, they heard an unfamiliar voice call from up the stairs. Okay, mother, Sakura called back up. Sorry everyone, I've gotta help a family friend move some stuff out of his basement tomorrow. Okay, Sakura-chan, Naruto said as he downed the last of his chocolate and stood up. Sasuke and Hinata both stood up afterwards. After Naruto placed his hand on Hinata's arm, they followed Sakura out the door. See you later, Sakura-chan, Naruto and Hinata called out while Sasuke just waved a hand over his shoulder. Later, Sasuke said as he disappeared into the night, leaving Naruto and Hinata alone. Well, it feels like it's getting late, so why don't you take me home now? Naruto requested. Okay, Naruto-kun. Hinata smiled as she guided Naruto through the streets of Konoha. On the way, Naruto found pleasure in describing in gory detail how he defeated Neji. Of course, he left out the part of him using the Kyuubi's chakra. They reached the apartment block just like the night before and proceeded to climb the stairs. Once they had entered the apartment, Hinata guided Naruto into his bedroom and near his bed. "I'll leave some more clothes out for the morning," Hinata said as she handed Naruto's pajamas to him, while blushing. Hinata picked out a different set of clothes, a white t-shirt with a red swirl on the chest and some electric blue trousers. Hinata blushed again as she picked up some more of his underwear. She dumped the pile down on the chair that was in the room. "Naruto-kun, if you wake up before I arrive and you want to get up, then your clothes are on the chair," Hinata said and turned around. She was surprised and a little disappointed to see that Naruto had already changed and climbed into bed. "Thanks, Hinata-chan. Good night," Naruto said as he snuggled up in bed. "Good night, Naruto-kun. See you tomorrow," Hinata said as she left the room and proceeded out the front door. She locked it on the way out and walked home. As Hinata walked through the main gates of the Hyuga mansion, she was deep in thought. How should I tell him? Should I ask him out? What if he says no? What if he says yes? Hinata screamed in her head. As she entered the house, she met with her father again, almost in the same spot as that morning. "Good evening, father," Hinata greeted. "Good evening, Hinata," Hiashi replied. With the greeting said, Hinashi was about to walk away when Hinata suddenly spoke up. "Father, I want to become stronger. I am ready," Hinata said. Hiashi turned his head and smiled at Hinata. "Very well, I shall arrange it." Without another word, Hiashi left. Hinata smiled to herself and proceeded up the stairs to her room. Neji, who heard the brief conversation, was going over what they had said. She wants to do it. She truly wants to change. I only wish she would wait. Neji thought as he retired to the taijutsu gym. I should really stop underestimating her.